So we start today with the sixth of the 10 Paramis, and it is generally in English it's translated as patience, and it's important to appreciate how much that this emphasis on patience as a perfection follows or builds on the foundation of the first five, of generosity, and what we learn from generosity and how generosity frees us in a certain way and benefits us. And with that benefit of generosity, then we build, the next step is to live in a life of ethical conduct, ethical behavior, to not through our behavior, speech and body cause harm in the world, but actually offer benefit. And have that be a source of, again, not obligation, not restriction, but the opposite, that ethical conduct in Buddhism is meant to be another step towards learning how to be free. And then renunciation, this beautiful quality of letting go of the things that harm us, to let go of the things which limit us and keep us from the higher good, the higher purpose that at least the Paramis represent, the purpose of liberation and the purposes of living a life of compassion. And then we have with renunciation, we have wisdom. And the wisdom is very much has to do with understanding what causes harm and not to do it, and what brings benefit and to do the things which are beneficial. It's not doesn't take a PhD in Buddhist studies or philosophy to understand what wisdom is in Buddhism. It's very experiential. But building on these earlier paramis, this understanding of harm and benefit becomes more and more acute or more sensitive in a very important way. That allows us then to engage, to make effort. An effort on the path of liberation, the ethics on the effort on the path of compassion, and but as we make effort, that sometimes we need patience, but that patience is building on the other paramis. It's supported by them, so it's a patience that knows how to stay. Be patient without harming ourselves. Be patient in a way that's compassionate. Patience that is really supported by a real clear insight, understanding, wisdom about why it's important to be patient. So in this teachings of this Buddhist word, khanti, which translates into English usually as patience, there are three different elements of it, or aspects of it. And the first is perseverance, that there's just the continuity of practice, the continuity of just being engaged. Again, building on the other paramis. So this is not blind perseverance or foolish perseverance, where we're just kind of hitting our head against the wall, or persevering in such a way that we get exhausted and stressed out and don't, it's perseverance that I call it gentle perseverance. Perseverance that is wise and does the wise thing in order to keep in sight the long-term goal of practice. Even though the emphasis is so much, like in the last meditation, was about just being in the moment fully, doing that practice of being in the moment fully is not the end of the story or the beginning of the story. It's like the goal is to walk to the top of a mountain, you might want to just be with each step at a time, a part of the walking, just really that step, and sometimes that's all you can do. But the preparations to go on the hike, the understanding of where the goal is, all those are in the picture, are part of it. So this long-term vision, yes, this is worthwhile. I'm going on this path, and I'm going to persevere. And for some people, perseverance is actually their most important quality that supports their Buddhist practice. They might not have a lot of concentration, they might not have a lot of mindfulness, a capacity for that, but what carries the day, what really supports them, is they just keep practicing day in and day out. It could be relaxed. It's like running a marathon. You can't, sprint. But day in and day out, moment by moment, coming back, practicing and practicing and practicing, holding the course. So perseverance, having the wisdom and the patience to persevere. The second quality of patience is patience under insult. And this is, sometimes it's called forbearance, and this is managing to go through all kinds of things which are challenging, difficult, insulting to us, painful to hear, but learning not to give in to our own anger, not to pick up the anger, the hostility especially, to not give in to hostility we might feel because of it. That the patience under insult is the patient not to give into the hostility. Doesn't mean we don't somehow take care of ourselves or tells people to stop or go away or do whatever needs to be done. We have to be wise about the circumstances we're in, but we don't give in to hostility. And this can be as simple as not becoming annoyed or hostile towards our devices if they're not working right, and we feel insulted in a sense by our devices not working and the connections don't work or something, and it can be major problems in life. The idea of persevering and not giving in to hostility, not giving in to despair or discouragement, is not always so easy given the magnitude of human suffering and the challenges people have in their lives, especially now with COVID-19 and people having the illness or losing loved ones in illness or not being able to go visit loved ones who are dying because you don't want to travel or not allowed to visit the nursing home or something. And there's unemployment that people have and economic challenges that are huge for a huge percentage of people in this country. And how to live through all that without succumbing to our hostility, to anger, to despair. And some of that has to do with this idea of patience, being patient, persevering, giving yourself a continuity of practice, understanding the tremendous value of staying free or staying compassionate or practicing along the path of liberation, seeing that has the greatest value, probably the greatest value of anything, certainly a greater value than any good that can come from hostility. That hostility we don't give into. So this is a very important principle in these teachings of the Paramis, that, and sometimes it's called forbearance, and it's not a very popular idea in the modern West, I think, the idea of forbearance. We often want to solve things quickly and fix things quickly, but classically in Buddhism, forbearance is a very important quality because of how it protects us from our own hostility. Then the third quality of patience is the patient's acceptance of the truth. That sometimes when we see what's really happening that's true, that we don't want to accept it. It's difficult to accept it. It's challenging to our very sense of who we are. Some of the Buddhist teachings of not self, not just teachings, but some of the deeper insights that we get, it's very hard to accept. And to have the patience acceptance of being present for all the workings of our inner life that are a little bit out of our control. There's a not self there. To find our freedom there. So, for example, sitting down to meditate, there have been times where it took a while for me to accept the truth that my mind was out of control. And that I had to be patient with that I had to accept that that was the condition in which I was practicing in. And only then, when I accepted my mind was out of control, thinking a mile a minute or something, 60 miles a minute or something, that I would, only then would I begin, meditation really begin to start. That any avoidance of what's true, pretending it's not there, trying to override it, doesn't really work in terms of Buddhist practice. So it might be the truth of what's going on in the world, around us, in our family, in our relationships, in our work, that there's an acceptance of the truth. And that acceptance, the way it's described, it doesn't mean that we condone it or we just blindly go along with it as if, as if we have to accept it and just continue with it. It's an acceptance that is a recognition. We accept a recognition of this is what's true. And then, hopefully, we're wise about if it can be changed, we see what we can do to change it. But I think that this idea of patience, acceptance of the truth, is to accept things which we cannot change. We cannot change how impermanent, inconstant this life is. And we cannot change the march of time that some people, are challenged by, especially some people as we get older, or we don't, and we see the end in sight in a sense. The acceptance of our condition, our mortality. There are things to be accepted that are true. That if we fight it, we're actually going in the wrong direction from freedom and from compassion. So patience, the parami of patience. And it's needed in the wake of effort, because as soon as we make effort, sooner or later, usually sooner, that we need patience to continue with the effort. We need perseverance. We need patience, forbearance, so we don't give in to hostility. Patience under insult, and the kind of appropriate acceptance of what's true. At least a clear recognition of what's true, and that becomes the starting point for how to find our way. So patience. So you might consider for the next 24 hours where and how you can have greater patience, and what your relationship to patience is, and which of these three forms of patience is your strength, and which you have challenges with, and which you'd like to develop more, and which you have questions about and doubts about. Really engage in this topic of patience, and talk to friends, and read about patience, and kind of let for the next 24 hours this idea of patience really live with you and explore it and get to know it. And that'll be preparation for tomorrow, because the next parami is truth. And perhaps there's something about patience that allows us to engage more fully and to see more fully what is true. So thank you very much, and I look forward to our time tomorrow.